to be done to address the issue of the truck parking shortage?
Well, let me just back up on your history. Back in '96, our research group, ATRI, looked at the issue of truck parking at the rest stops, at the rest areas. And we found in '96 it was a 30,000 space shortage across the country. That was 30 years ago. I challenge any state DOT today to show me one new parking space that they've built. In fact, you can't do it. You can find DOTs that have closed rest areas, right? But nobody is building rest areas. The solution, and I don't know where you're going to get the money, but we've got to create a benchmark or a line item in whatever federal budget we can, and put money into building truck parking spaces all along major routes and major corridors for the industry.
So what are you hearing from?
Well, actually, Ted, that's been the goal for the last 20 years. And, you know, we have even been successful in earlier highway bills in getting money specifically dedicated to truck parking. But when it gets to the states, that's not what they're going to do with it. They're not going to. And realistically, that ain't going to change. Parking is another issue that is an unseen cost of deregulation that is borne by the public, and it's borne principally by drivers. And while I find that personally not to my liking, the only reality we're going to have is we're going to have paid parking. We'd prefer there to be more truck stops. That's easier said than done. With truck stops, it's the NIMBY deal. We've got an issue with the truck stop right now, and I'm going to say in Bend, Washington, where the city not only refuses to let the truck stop expand, but they're actually considering ordinances and things like that more or less would put them out of business. Now, I mean, the issues are big in that this particular truck stop, when it snows and the roads close, I mean, it not only is totally full, and it is most all the time anyway, but I mean, traffic backs up down the interstates. I mean, we have a major issue. Uncle Sugar ain't going to bail us out on it. It's going to have to be public-private partnerships, and there's going to have to be money involved. And that's not what probably most of OOIDA members want to hear, but we have to move on in this area. You know, what sort of kind of gets back to my point earlier when we talked about a driver shortage and the way drivers are treated. You know, we are involved in an industry that is absolutely vital to everyone in America. I mean, if every other transportation mode shut down, people would miss trucks in as little as 3 days. It is inexcusable. I mean, it says a whole lot about where the values are of the people that run, the folks that run the large carriers. In that truck drivers ought to be among the most well-paid blue-collar workers in America. I mean, drivers should fight to keep those jobs. We should have no trouble finding the best, the most professional. And there's no reason we can't pay these people, except it's just a matter of will. And, you know, I understand most of you guys are smaller guys. The big guys like it that way. They play a game. It's sort of, you know, they call it last man standing. And you know, I don't know how many last men there are going to be, but, you know, no matter what, somebody's still got to be behind the wheel to deliver the freight. There's no excuse for not being able to pay drivers, and there's no excuse that we can't come up with a way to charge for the services we provide where we can accommodate them. But the government ain't going to do it. We have to do it.
And I know that somebody in the back of the room shot me if I'm wrong, I think I recently saw where Love's has added over 4,000 spots recently to some of their locations.
50 new facilities.
Facilities,
Sure.
TA Petro's doing the same. And Counterpoint J for one is also doing the reserved parking ahead of time now. They've started that as well. So there's some of that going on. Then you talk about the funding for things like this, and we saw the state of Michigan get a $4.5 million grant to help solve the parking issue. And what they're going to do, instead of building parking spots, is throw up road signs. And then there's a road sign showing the availability or lack of availability of those parking spots.
I think there's a press conference maybe going on right now as we speak in DC where people are patting themselves on the back that they have some of this money that's been appropriated to provide information systems basically to tell you where there may or may not be someplace.
And, they've actually been doing that for the last 20 years.
Well, I know, but I mean, like today.
We have seen FMCSA and the Federal Highway Department squander $40 million over the last 20 years on demonstrations of putting parking information into the cab of the truck. And there has yet to be one iota of data given to the driver about where to park. Lord, you honestly would think, we've got modes that know when they're occupied. Automatically know when they're occupied. You'd think we could create a parking lot, parking space that could do the same thing. May not be able to flush, Lord.